Okay, we're now starting in the second video that covers the portions of STS that are involved in actually running an operating session. In the first portion, we talked about ordering or having customers order cars and filling those car orders and then repositioning empties. In this section, we're going to talk about building switch lists and then actually running trains and when showing you how they will pick up cars, organize their trains, and then set cars out. So as you see here on this slide, we go to the Build Switchlist link. That's in the during operations section. Now to build switch lists, we go to each station. This simulates the freight agents or yard masters at each of those stations figuring out which cars will be handled by which trains. So in real life, the person at that station would get out some switch lists or generate some wheel reports, one for each train coming through or originating there, telling that crew which cars they're supposed to pick up from where. As we saw in the setup portion of this, the job instructions tell the crews where to set out cars. The routing instructions at each station tell the crews which cars to pick up at each of those stations. So once we pick the station, it will STS will now show us all the cars at that site that are ready to move. And then all we do is we go down the list of cars and we assign each one of those cars to a job. In this example here, we have the Chicago yard, and you can see that the cars in that yard have only two choices. They're either to be handled by the westbound ray freight, westbound manifest freight if they're moving out of town, or they'll be handled by the Chicago yard switcher if they're going to be either spotted at a customer or pulled from a customer and brought back to the yard. So what we've done here, we've assigned each of those four cars to a job. The first one, the SU 66997, is going to be moving to the Northwest Aggregates, and that is in Emerald Junction. And so that'll be handled by the westbound manifest freight. The other three cars, the boxcar and the two cement cars, are in the Chicago yard, and they have to be spotted at Chicago customers. So that's why they've been assigned to the Chicago yard job. Once we have the switch list built, now we can go over to the operating documents portion and click on switch lists, and it'll ask us to pick a job, and once we do that, it'll show us the switch list for that job. So here we have the switch list for the Chicago yard. On the left-hand half of it, you can see that it says train is the Chicago yard. The engine, engineer, conductor, that information is for the operators to pencil in what engine they've been assigned, in engineer's name, conductor's name, and the date and time they leave and arrive. Below that, you'll see the three cars that have been assigned to the Chicago yard job. They haven't been picked up yet, so the picked up column is still blank. Over on the right-hand section, you see the job description. This is the information that you entered when you set up the job. This is the part that can be as detailed as you wish or as broad as you wish, depending on the experience of your crews. And you can print this switch list as well. So you can either look at it online or you can print it. And when you print it, it's meant to be folded in half, similar to the prototype waybills that are folded in half. And so the front side will contain the cars that you need to pick up, and then on the back side are the instructions. So to actually pick up a car, you go to the pickup car link on the during operations section, and you select the job. In this case, we're going to select Chicago yard. Now it shows us the cars that have been assigned to that switch list. And so what you do is, in order to pick up a car, you just put a check mark in the box in the left-hand column. That tells STS that your train, your job, your crew is now in possession of that car. You can mark them all as picked up at one time if you wish, or you can mark them as you actually pick them up one at a time. So if you go back and look at your switch list again, after you've picked up all those cars, now you can see there's an X in the picked up column. The left at column is again just for, if you print this out, is for the crews to make a note as to where they left that car, So when the job terminates, you can update STS and let the system know where the car was placed. STS does not assume that cars will be spotted in any certain location, spotted or set out. It needs to be told by the crew where it went. That makes it's easy for STS to keep track of the cars that way, so that if you accidentally set out a car in the wrong spot, it's no problem, because then another job will come by either that same day or the next day, pick up that car, and forward it to where it's supposed to go. If we want to organize our cars to match the switch list, or organize a switch list to match the cars, in other words, the order of the cars, we use the organized car section. This also works for tracks. You can, if you have yard tracks, large yard tracks, and you want to keep track of which car is first, which car is last, and so on, you can use the organize button to tell STS in what order those cars are located on a track. So when you print a station car report, it'll list the cars in the actual physical order that they're positioned. Same thing for in a train. So if you want the switch list to show to match the physical order of the cars in your train, you use the organize button. And so here's an example of the three cars that the Chicago switcher has in tow. And you use those arrows on the left side to move the car up or down in the switch list. So we're going to take that first one and we're going to move it to the bottom, because when I looked at our physical train, I noticed that that boxcar is actually at the end of the cut of cars that the switcher has attached itself to. And so here you can see, by using those up and down arrows, we moved that boxcar back to the end of the switch list. So now the switch list matches the order in which the cars are physically located. Once we get to where we're going to spot the cars or set out the cars, we use the set out car link. And this is where we tell STS where the car was left. And on the left-hand side there, you'll see that there's a drop-down box. The only options you'll have in that drop-down list are the places that you told STS the train will travel through. Now, in this case, because the Chicago switcher is only working in Chicago yard, the only places it can drop cars off is at Chicago customers and the Chicago yard. So here, those bottom two covered hoppers, STS has now been told that those two things are spotted at the Cemex bulk cement. Once we set them out, if we go back and look at the switch list online, you see they're no longer in the switch list. It's because they're no longer in the train. The boxcar is still hooked up to the switcher, so that's still in our train. Now, once you have all your cars set out, you might want to verify that they're in the right location. And so the station car report will allow you to do that. You can pick a certain station to look at, or you can pick all the stations. In this case, we just want to see what's in Chicago. And so if I select Chicago off the station car list, I can see that a boxcar is spotted at the Ball Packaging Company, and it's in the process of being loaded. The two covered hoppers are at the Cemex plant, and they are in the process of being loaded. And all those other cars down the bottom are all in the yard, and they're just empty, waiting assignment. Now, if you are going to set a car out at some other location than where it is to be loaded or unloaded, that's easy to do too. Again, you just select the location off the drop-down list on the left-hand side. So in this case, that westbound manifest freight was bringing in one empty gondola that will be loaded with gravel at the Northwest Aggregates company in Emerald Junction. Now, that westbound manifest freight isn't going to spot that car. That's the Wayfreight's job. But what the manifest freight is going to do is it's going to drop it off that car and put it on one of the two interchange or transfer tracks there in the Emerald Junction yard. So it set out that car on Emerald Junction track 1. And so that car is not at its loading location or unloading location. It's just sitting on a track there, and that's perfectly okay. Now, after the manifest freights have dropped off all their gondolas that will be loaded, you can see when I run a station car report, it says I've got those 3 gons, and they're all on Emerald Junction track number 1. So now the way freight comes, and it's going to pick up those 3 GONs, so we can spot them at the Northwest aggregates. So we're going to build a switch list for the westbound way freight. Again, we picked Emerald Junction, and at Emerald Junction, those 3 cars are ready to go. They're ready to move, and so we just assign each one of them to the westbound way freight. Notice that their status still says ordered. It's because they're not at their loading location yet. Once we spot those cars at the Northwest aggregates, once we set them out there, now you can see that their status has been changed to loading because STS knows that they are now at their loading location.